It is people, power, and politics. Look at that flag. Thanks for staying up late with us, talking tariffs on the pulse in Canada. Joining us to talk about the closer look at the impact of the trade war between the U.S. and Canada, Troy Mayer and chair of the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, which works a lot with Canada. We're talking about Ethan Baker. We thank you for joining us here today.
Happy to be here, Roop.
I want to talk to you about this. There's so many different levels of the relationship between Canada and the U.S. Fisheries. When I think fisheries right away, I know that we're the Great Lakes state, but I had no idea the number that you're talking about, the economic impact of trade between us.
It's unbelievable. And, you know, so 5 Great Lakes, right? There's 8 Great Lakes states in the United States, and the province of Ontario come together and control the fishery of that, which is a $5 to $6 billion annual industry. $5 to $6 billion in commercial and recreational fishing. It's a huge project, and for 70 years, the Great Lakes Fishery Commission has been in effect, which was a binational commission formed by treaty between the two nations to effectively, at the time, fix the fishery because the countries had ignored it for decades before that, and the lake trout population and other fish populations had all been decimated by the sea lamprey.
So now we're seeing somewhat of a fractured relationship between Canada and the U.S. You're hearing the Prime Minister with some bold words saying, we'll come back and do the same to you. This has been a long-time ally. What does this do to that $5 to $6 billion and the treaty? What happens next?
Well, fortunately, I'll say right now, the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, we've got 4 U.S. commissioners, 4 Canadian commissioners. I'm presidentially appointed. They're appointed by the Prime Minister. We have a great relationship still, and we're working really hard to ensure that the fishery is not affected, even though we've had some difficulties in the past couple months with hiring and things of such. But our relationship with Canada, especially as it relates to the Great Lakes and the fish and that industry, remains intact.
But there's a treaty that you're talking about, and I know this President Trump, as he's done kind of taking a look and auditing all that's been done in the past, he's saying, hey, maybe we should get rid of this treaty and start from scratch. Does that worry you?
Yes and no. I think the president has a history of trying to scrap things and start fresh. Look what he did with NAFTA, right? And actually, arguably, what ended up coming out of that, the USCMA was better, right? Good, people were more impressed with it. I don't know if the Great Lakes Fishery Commission and our treaty is at risk. There's a couple, the International Joint Commission and a couple other ones related to waterways specifically, that I think he's targeted more specifically. I'm all for making our treaty and our commission better. If we can do it, we will work really hard to do it. I certainly wouldn't want to be in a period where there's no joint cooperation between the two nations, because I think that would have devastating effects on the economy.
Do you think that we're approaching a time where Canada and U.S. won't see eye to eye and we could see those issues that you're talking about?
You know, it's interesting. So like I said, before the 70 years ago, before the commission was formed, they ignored each other, and we did our thing with the lakes, they did their thing with the lakes, and it had devastating effects. We've worked really well together for the past 70 years, but there has been some difficulties. What we're not talking about today is, for the past few years, I've been focused on this commission in trying to get Canada to pay their fair share of what they're obligated to do, and it's been a strugel.
As chair, you've struggled to ask them to pay their fair share.
Yeah, I testified before the Parliament in Ottawa and the Senate in Canada as well, and we've worked really hard to get them back online with what their obligations are. So, you know, everyone's talking about how bad the United States is being right now in that respect, but Canada had their share of issues for the past few years, and fortunately we've resolved those, but now here we are facing another issue. So the relationship's always going to be a delicate one, but I think the common goal of protecting our Great Lakes is at top of everyone's list, and certainly the partnerships we've formed with our Canadian counterparts, the members of Congress here in the United States, and the members of Parliament in Ottawa, bipartisan support for the Great Lakes and the fishery. I mean, we work really hard. You'd be amazed at the cooperation between Republicans and Democrats in D.C. when it comes to our Great Lakes and the Commission.
I find it fascinating talking to so many of my Democratic sources, some lawmakers in Washington who tell me, hey, listen, I understand what President Trump is doing here. This has been, again, upwards of a $1 trillion trade deficit in 1 year. This is not an even playing field, and this president is saying, let's make it a little more even. Do you have a problem with the way he's going about it?
Is it my style? Not necessarily. Is President Trump's style to break a few eggs to make an omelet? You can afford the eggs now, I think, right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, it is, right? That's what he does. That's who he is. We do know that. It makes people uncomfortable. I talked to a good friend today who's deeply involved in D.C. and politics, and she said, you know, this is our last chance to make it work. She really believes that. She goes, it may not work. What he's doing may not work, but we're going to give it a shot. And so I think we all want America to succeed, right? None of us want the president to fail on these, even as uncomfortable as it is.
I know the DOJ, the office, essentially, Elon Musk is a special government employee, had basically 130 days to do his work, and now we're hearing that he may actually leave this summer. Do you think that'll make things better or worse? in terms of confidence and what people think about what's going on in Washington?
Politically, I'll put on my political hat for a second. I think it's going to make the Democrats focus on something different. It's been really easy for them to focus on Elon Musk, and we see the Tesla burn and all of those things related to Elon. If he's out of the picture, I think it'll be a little bit more traditional. People will be more focused on, partisan, just going Republican, Democrat, and such. But I think the principles that have been in place since the new Trump administration related to Elon and Doge, those are now kind of part of the lexicon and part of what we're talking about in this country. I hear it in the city of Troy. People are telling me we need to Doge city government. I say we've already done that and we'll continue to do it, but it's part of what people are thinking about today.
You're hearing that from Senator Jim Runstead, who of course is a big Republican in Lansing, about Doging Michigan as well. It's an interesting one, but whatever you do, get your hands off other people's cars. There's no excuse for that. Monsters, you have to go away. You cannot burn people's cars. But it is an interesting time in our country, one that we're so grateful to have Ethan Baker on with us to take a look at. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Roop.
That is the Pulse for tonight. It was good to be with you. I'm Roop Raj. As always, I'll see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.